Good morning, and welcome to All People's Church Unitarian Universalist. My name is Lori McKitka, and I am your co-celebrant this morning. Our Sunday service is a shared time of worship for all present as we gather for music, spoken words, a time of reflection and inspiration as a religious community. Let us come together in a spirit of compassion and respect for ourselves and others attending this service. We especially welcome those of you who are visiting today. If you haven't yet done so, please sign in at the visitors table by the front door, where you can be placed on our mailing list to receive weekly emails and the monthly newsletter. Before we continue on to worship, there are some announcements. Community, we talked about this last week, but just to remind you, Community UU Church in Plano has had an incident where someone put a firebomb against their front door. Fire alarm systems notified the fire department, and they quickly put it out after moderate damage. No one was injured. Police are looking into it. A targeted attack against our sister church is very disturbing. We have a jar for donations on the table in the foyer. Please give to help them with their repair costs and show our support. And also, from Sarah, we have postcards in the foyer for you to send good wishes, love, and support to Community UU in Plano. Also, Eastside Ministry is having a jazz fundraiser. I saw this on their Facebook page. It sounds so fun. They're having a jazz fundraiser this Saturday. There are signs in the foyer that talk about that. And we got a note from a UU supporter to area churches because they heard about the attack in Community. In light of the attack on Community UU Church in Plano, I just wanted to send a note of love and support from a fellow UU. We are holding Texas UUs in our thoughts, and she thanks us for the ministry we're doing, and as a gay UU, they know that our ministry is life-saving. Despite the attack on another Texas congregation, I hope you are finding comfort and safety with your community. With love, Saul. Yes.
Reservations are required. You can't just show up and so let either me or Max know by tomorrow because they need to know they're giving free dinners, so they need to know how to prepare.
Thanks, Colleen. Our final announcement is an introduction of Lori, who is in the pulpit again this morning after way too long. Lori King Nelson is a cradle-roll disciple, growing up in Fort Worth First Christian Church, the church her family has called home since 1917. Lori is a member of Pastors for Texas Children and is active in the Disciples of Christ community, filling the pulpit in area disciple churches, volunteering at Disciples food pantries, and occasionally providing church services for Juliet Fowler communities. She is a lifelong learner, an artist, and an avid traveler, having lived across the U.S. and internationally. Lori holds a Bachelor of Science in Comparative Religious Studies from Texas Wesleyan and a Master of Divinity from Bright Divinity School at TCU. Lori currently serves as Program Director of the Dallas Furniture Bank, a nonprofit that provides the basic furniture needs for people transitioning from homelessness and other crises. Lori has 4 children, 3 grandchildren, a flock of chickens, an enormous potbelly pig named Crispy Bacon, and 2 ducks named Crackers and Friendly Duck. Lori, welcome back to All Peoples. And now, please settle comfortably for our musical prelude.
Lori, we're probably going to have to update the list of my animals.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, my granddaughter called frantic, and she said, a friend of mine has found a mama chicken and 3 babies at the Popeyes chicken near the corner of Alta Mesa and McCart. She said, "Can you take them?" I can only imagine what that looked like for 5 of them to be running around trying to capture all these chickens. But they did, and they brought them to me, and we put them in the backyard in a guinea pig cage in order to keep them quarantined from our new baby chickens. Excuse me. My pig was so interested in them and loves them so much that he went over and laid near them, well, like right up against the cage, busted the cage open, so that ended the quarantine, and they immediately became part of the flock. But I'm going to have to find homes for some of them because I have way too many now. I probably have about 25 chickens right now. And yeah, when you've got like 4 roosters crowing in your backyard, the neighbors will notice. So, but they're in a transition home right now, so we'll just call it that. We prepare ourselves with a call to worship. Teach us to consider also how others experience the world, to understand how my reality and their reality are different, and yet they share the qualities of the same core desire. Teach us to listen for shared feelings, for places of connection. Teach us to be curious and open to hearing differences. Teach us to love into brokenness, to give space for, to be patient with healing. Let us be strong in our vulnerability, in our not knowing, in exposing our less than perfect, scary bits to those in front of us. Give us courage to face judgment, scorn, and hatred because of the greater good. Let us be disciples of essential goodness, strong in our knowing that in each being there is a divine light of the soul. Give us the strength to keep feeling empathy, even when we are tired and broken. For it is then that you are feeling that empathy through us. This was called Prayer for a Time in Need of Empathy by Tanya Cothran.
We invite you to rise in body or spirit for the chalice lighting, opening hymn, and spoken affirmation. Our chalice lighting words come to us from the Oberlin UU Fellowship in Ohio. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for one another, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. Now please join us in singing our opening hymn, number 323, Break Not the Circle. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. You can sit. Thank you. The young and young at heart are now invited to come forward for our time for all ages. Here at the front of the chancel, we have pillows for you.
Oh, there's plenty today. Hi. So I have this book with me today, and it's the very last book that was written by Raymond Carver, who is a poet and also wrote short stories. It is called A New Path to the Waterfall. He wrote this after he found out that he was dying from cancer. He found out, I think, when he was 48, and he died at the age of 50. So there are some things in here that kind of help him. He tells us how he has struggled with whether or not he did enough in his life, and whether or not he loved himself enough during his life. So I'm going to read it to you. This last poem, this is the very last thing he ever wrote, and it's called Late Fragment. And did you get what you want? I'm sorry, let me start over. And did you get what you wanted from this life? Even so. I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. Sounds like he's having a conversation with himself, doesn't it? Yeah. What do you think it means to be beloved? What's he talking about? I think you're both right. We got two answers. One was to be loved by others, and the other was to love yourself and feel you're good enough. And both of those are correct. That's absolutely right. Beloved, to call myself beloved and to feel myself beloved. So what do you think he means when he says, and did you get what you wanted from this life, even so? What does that mean, that even so? What's he talking about to himself? He's second-guessing himself. Second-guessing his answers to life, yeah. Or what he has done, yeah. I think that that's exactly right, too. He feels like he may have fallen short in what he wanted to accomplish or how he wanted to live his life. And so he's asking himself if he got what he wanted from this life. And what he decides in the very end is that, yeah, it's up to him to make that decision about whether he was good enough. And he decides that he was good enough. And I think that there's times in our lives when we deal with that same kind of thing, when we don't feel like we're good enough or that we've done enough or we're doing everything we can to please other people so that they will like us or feel like we deserve to be loved, when actually we're the ones that get to decide that. Have y'all ever had any situations like that where you've kind of felt less than?
I've been in that situation.
You're in that situation right now. Do you want to share that or not? Okay.
I was trying to be funny.
Oh, but you probably are, yes. Oh, okay. Right? That is a bad teacher that would get mad at you for asking for help. Okay. Now that's a wonderful group of friends to have around you who would check up on you, and the people who were advocating for you and teaching you that it's okay to stand up for yourself. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I want to thank y'all for sharing about this today and for being involved in this really important congregation. And I want you to always remember that you are good enough and you are beloved by all of us.
The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. It is our custom to share the undesignated cash offerings that are collected each week. We do this on a quarterly basis for a nonprofit or charitable organization. Our current Share the Plate recipient is Eastside Community Assistance. The offering will now be accepted. Will the ushers please come forward?
That, I don't know what will touch you. It's just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, choir. This reading this morning is something that was written by Greta Gerwig and polished over a 2 to 3 month period with America Ferrera, and is the monologue in the Barbie movie. It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. You can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but you also have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten another woman because you're supposed to be part of the sisterhood. But always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged. So find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old, Never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard. It's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll just representing women, then I don't even know.
At this time in our service, we pause to honor and to give time and attention to those things most important to us. We gather here for healing and for peace in our hearts and in the world, and honor our time together with the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week, there is a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope. Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center here at the side of the chancel. Today, from our book of memory and hope, we include, please keep Christine Chapman in your thoughts and prayers. Could you please keep my brother, Andy Johnson, and my son, Jay Burnham, in your thoughts and prayers also. Andy is mending slowly, and Jay is in the hospital. These are all from Joe Burnham. Also grateful for the U.S. women's soccer team who show all of us how to keep trying in the face of adversary and patriarchal oppression. What tremendous role models they are for us. And let us also include in our circle of concern those beyond our immediate community. Heather Cox Richardson recently wrote, "People are wrong to say that we have no heroes left. Just as they have always been, they are all around us, choosing to do the right thing no matter what." I would like to recognize our heroes, those people in our midst that in small or large ways help to initiate needed changes in our community and in our world. Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. Please now settle comfortably and pause for a few moments of quiet meditation to hold and uplift the sorrows and celebrations, both spoken and unspoken among us. And then Daria will lift our hearts with music.
Thank you for that. That was so beautiful, Daria. The poem that I read to Our Young and Young at Heart by Raymond Carver, I actually heard it for the first time when I was watching Marvel's Secret Invasion. It was a poem that was delivered by Samuel L. Jackson, and imagine that voice reading that. It was really good. Years ago, on our annual vacation to the lake house up north, and well before my son transitioned, he and his friend ran down to the dock and asked me to take them into town to buy some Barbies. They don't have to be real Barbies, he said. Dollar Tree Barbies are good enough. And after spending just a few minutes in the store, they emerged with the dollar store versions of a Barbie and a Ken. About an hour later, he came to ask if he could borrow my phone because they wanted to film something with the dolls. I assumed, wrongly, that it would be some adventure drama or maybe a short film like when he set up the nativity village in our living room and had our cat as a sort of Godzilla swatting over buildings and stomping villagers. It happened. It's on my Facebook. Occasionally I'll repost it. When I heard the song Disco Inferno being blasted from the direction of the fire pit, I thought maybe I needed to see what was going on. As I got close, I could see they had tied fake Barbie and fake Ken to sticks and were filming them being burned at the stake. What are you doing? I'm burning down the capitalist patriarchy. And as the dolls melted and dripped into the fire, he said, "Don't worry, it's almost over." And by the way, the smell of burning capitalist patriarchy is very, very bad. We have a rule now. The human damage is just as bad, though. Something I learned after an exchange with a church member on a Valentine's Day. I asked why the men were only handing out roses to the women. We're all loved, right? He immediately turned to a nearby group of men and called me caustic. 5 years later, he was still harboring feelings on this. As I exited the elevator holding a carnation given in honor of mothers on Mother's Day. "I feel bad for the guy who gave you that flower," he said. He was consumed with this idea that because I questioned this patriarchal slant on a capitalist holiday, that there must be something wrong with me. 5 years. I used to feel bad about it, but now it just makes me happy that at least he's still thinking about it. You know, many women struggle with how to navigate a culture built to keep women in subservient roles because, as America Ferrera pointed out in the Barbie movie, there are just so many rules and the rules are so contradictory. I remember thinking that women were sold such a lie when Mattel put out a line of astronaut Barbies and pilot Barbies, scientist Barbies, police officer, veterinarian. There's more than 150 careers that Barbie can choose from. Yes, you can work longer and harder than anyone else to be whatever you want, but you'll still, in 2023, be paid 82 cents for every dollar a man makes in the same position. You can make less money for doing more work while you're still primary caregiver to your family, and yet we all pretend we can be whatever we want. Years ago, a fellow religion student wanting to be an Anglican priest responded to our discussion on how women are, in fact, excluded from many careers. He claimed that was nonsense and that he teaches his daughter that she can be anything she wants. When I asked if she could be a priest in the Anglican Church, he said no, but there were plenty of other ways she could serve the church. I asked if he planned to continue to lie to her about the real world, where her father actively serves a system that places barriers that she cannot break through. This struggle to navigate a system built to advantage men is exactly why I found the Barbie movie to be so important for all of us. Greta Gerwig shows us how this capitalist patriarchy hurts all of us, and she does this with empathy, truth, depth, and sensitivity, and humor. And I really did not expect to feel bad for Ken, for any of the Kens. But there I was thinking about how men are suffering under this patriarchy too. The plight of Ken closely resembles the condition of men in our own society. While wealthy men run society, the masses of men suffer in isolation and competition because even they are being told what they can and cannot be. According to a 2021 American Perspective survey, 15% of men don't have a single close friend. 28% of men under the age of 30 report having no close social connections, meaning they haven't had a single important personal conversation within the last 6 months. This doesn't only affect cisgender men. Some trans men report new feelings of isolation and increased difficulty with connecting with other men after transitioning. Social isolation can be devastating. CDC studies show isolation significantly increases a person's risk of premature death from all causes, a risk that may rival those of smoking. These findings are concerning, with implications not only for the men who are likely to harm themselves, but also for those around them. Gillian Peterson, a professor of criminology at Hamline University, says that kind of isolation leads to self-hate, and men who externalize that self-hate are perfect candidates for becoming mass shooters. Aiken Ola writes, unfortunately, a lot of men are being organized in the opposite direction. The rise of the manosphere. This was a new word for me. A network of misogynist communities with digital platforms like blogs, podcasts, and forums is a real threat to the liberation of men from their plight. Incels and male supremacists use men's very real struggles to fuel hatred towards women while ignoring the systemic roots of their own pain. They demonize and attack the Barbies in their life, evading the reality that Barbie Land was maintained externally by the men of Mattel. Manosphere spaces serve as a path towards right-wing extremism for young men. What starts as resentment towards a crush can quickly become active harassment, violence, and even mass violence, as in the case of Elliot Rodger, the Santa Barbara shooter who killed 6 people in 2014 and has since become a hero to some sections of the manosphere. Where does that leave those trying to live this Barbie life in a Ken world? Dreaming of a world where everyone is valued and respected equally? I appreciated Sarah's words last week, telling us about Lieutenant Uhura and how she nearly quit the show, but was then told by, and I am not going to lie, I thought she was going to say Stan Lee. But no, it was someone way cooler than that. She was told by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself that there are generations of women seeing themselves in her, and that is so powerful. Hedy Lamarr invented frequency hopping for use in guiding torpedoes without detection in World War II. She was only recently recognized as the inventor of what would become Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth, though young women credited her with sparking their interest in STEM careers. Many men aggressively dismissed her publicly while finding new applications for her invention privately. And she never received a cent for this, even though the U.S. military took this from her. Gail Patrick Jackson was Dean of Women at Howard College, a lawyer, an actor, and the first female producer of a primetime series, producing Perry Mason from 1957 to 1966. She is credited with placing minorities and women in characters of power on the show, notably Betty Davis as a high-powered lawyer, and Vincent Townsend Jr. as the first African-American judge to preside over a trial. Can you even imagine the blowback on that? And how that has influenced a generation to see themselves as something more than just a background character. How do we create a society where women and men and all those in between and outside of gender constructs can express who they are without the intrusion of capitalism that relies on a binary to stay in power? How do we help one another awaken from this construct that is injuring all of us? Are we all responsible for helping each other down a new path? I don't know. I think so. But it's a very delicate dance to help others while also maintaining boundaries. Thanks to Greta Gerwig, I know that whatever we do must be done with empathy and truth. This one scene in the film where Barbie tells Ken to leave and he doesn't want to, and she apologizes because she recognizes she may have hurt his feelings. The young girl sitting near me in the theater said out loud, "Don't apologize, oh my God." And she's right. We can be empathetic and understanding without being responsible for someone else's behavior. Rebecca Wolf asks, when a woman is afraid to hurt a man's feelings, she does both men and women a disservice. So how do we stop coddling men when we are afraid not to? We gas each other up and embrace our unlikability. And this is what she has to say about that. There is this moment in the Barbie movie just before the climactic Barbie world battle of the sexes where Barbie admits that in spite of everything Ken has done to Barbie world, turning it into a Kenarchy that subordinates Barbies, she doesn't want to hurt Ken's feelings. It's not the first time we've seen or heard Barbie react this way to Ken. It's pretty apparent from the beginning that Barbie is working very hard to gently handle, coddle, pacify Ken, instead of just telling him straight up she doesn't want to be his girlfriend and that he's annoying. In fact, she never kicks him out of anywhere, even when it's clear she wants to. Even when he sneaks into her car to join her in the real world, she's like, "Oh, fine, you can come, I guess, even though you weren't invited," putting his needs before her own. All throughout the movie, we watch her babysit Ken, giving him just enough of her attention so that he doesn't feel sad, angry, or triggered in any way. But in the epic monologue scene where Gloria rips into the female experience, suggesting women can't have it all because we're too busy trying to win people over, Barbie actually says the words out loud. "But I don't want to hurt Ken. I don't want to hurt Ken. But what about Ken?" It is here in this moment that her reluctance to fight for her dream house feels at once upsettingly familiar and frustratingly real. It is also when Gloria looks deep into Barbie's eyes and says something like, "But Barbie, he took your house." And while I wish we lived in a world where everyone just did the right thing, we don't. So in order to get what is rightfully ours, sometimes we have to write essays or character monologues about how wrong this really is. Sometimes we have to make men uncomfortable, even men we love. As Margaret Atwood wrote about the gendered experience, men are afraid women will laugh at them. Women are afraid men will kill them. And while there are no deadly weapons in Barbie land, the tension exists. And it doesn't take much to trigger the Kens, all of whom are unstable in their dependency on women for attention and eventually go to war over they don't even know what. They just feel like it's something they're supposed to do now that they have a paradigm for men in power. Perhaps Greta Gerwig, just like her heroine Barbie, and so many women and girls who sat riveted through her film, also struggle with this. Perhaps Greta, while making this film, had to decide whether or not she was good with making a lot of men angry, and she did. The fact that both Barbie, the character, and Greta, the filmmaker, had to choose between knowingly, willingly hurting men's feelings in order to take back and build their own Barbie dream houses was a coup I found myself cheering for most of all. Because in my experience, the moment you realize you are hated by the very people you have tried so hard to be loved by, you're free. Because now you don't have to try so hard anymore. Because the moment a woman realizes that she cannot control the way she is perceived, she can finally live her life. And in Gloria's monologue, I heard Greta Gerwig giving herself the same pep talk Gloria was giving to Barbie and everyone else, gassing herself up. Because any woman making a movie with that kind of budget, cultural pressure, and expectation would absolutely have to. Rebecca says, the fact that every woman and girl I have heard from the last few days mentioned Gloria's monologue means that regardless of what Barbie we associate ourselves with based on professional and personal appearances, we all associate ourselves with can't seem to win Barbie. Because under a patriarchal system, we literally can't. But here's the thing, neither can men. They can appear to, but in the end, the pressure they put on themselves to be better, stronger, more successful, and powerful ultimately makes them feel worse. And then they end up fighting each other for no reason, exerting hollow power as a defense mechanism. Even in those early scenes when Barbie Land was Barbie landing, the Barbies still had to deal with all the Kens, all of whom seemed mildly unhinged, directionless, and dull, often pretending to want them around, even when they didn't. It isn't until Barbie finally tells Ken the truth that she doesn't want him, that she can take back what's rightfully hers, setting everyone in Barbie Land, Ken included, free. And all it took for her to get there was an existential crisis, followed by some well-articulated truth bombs, followed by the rallying of a community who believed in each other. At the end of Gloria's monologue, she says to Barbie, "I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie ourselves into knots so that people will like us." Which is why every time I read anything skewering Barbie for its messaging, I feel a jolt of pride. For Greta Gerwig, for everyone involved in the making of Barbie, and for myself. Because the only way to untie ourselves from aspirational likability is to establish a level of comfort with not being liked. Not just with men, but in general. And while supporting each other for being brave enough to be human won't solve everything, it's a start. I just want to say thank you, Greta. Thank you for seeing the struggle we all face and your vision and courage in sharing it in such a perfect you way. Will you join us in the closing hymn, number 331, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.
Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hum, sparkling through space, one to another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines.
We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for one another, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues until we are together again. Be strong, be well, be true, and be loving. join us for the potluck directly after worship, and have a fantastic Barbie day.